Whoa, what a scandal. Harry with Pro Schmo BETS, man, and talk about this FBI probe, man. This actually what you're hearing here in the coming days, you're going to be pretty much blown away by how nothing comes of this. Yeah, this FBI probe, not much is going to come of it. You might not know, but insider betting is not a federal crime. All right, and but before we get into that, and of course, we always have to come through with the Zaza, man, and siphon all this that's going on. Harry Mack on Ariel Helwani's show. If you don't know who he is, that's the journalist that broke all of this, man. The whole thing, the FBI probing into a betting scandal involving Isaac Delgarian. Shout out to Harry Mack, man. I'll see him at Terminal 5 Victory Fight League December 12th. And yeah, there's many places we could open up this conversation, but more importantly, I want you guys to understand that what you will hear right now is going to be things you will not hear from journalists, the media, friends, comments, things you could watch on YouTube besides what you're going to be offered here. But yeah, you heard it right, man. Insider betting, unlike money markets and stocks. Remember Martha Stewart, her partner, doing 7 years. Okay, 7 years in federal prison because he tipped her off about how the FDA was not found a very unfavorable liking to an ingredient or something for a product, and the shares would plunge. That had him serve 7 years. So there is a seriousness. There are regularities and things that you must follow, rules and regulations when it comes to money market accounts. But for sports betting, for insider betting, it's completely different. There are institutions now, okay, like, the FBI, that have taken upon, a seriousness to this. And we could refer to it all encompassing as gaming, okay? Gaming, whether it's esports or online sports gambling or tables, slots, whatever the case is, anything that has to do with the game of chance, okay? They finally have actually set up an office. They set up an office to make sure that, it's regulated somehow. And it all really, you could say, began with the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act, man. They saw that the gaming industry was sports in general, sports, okay? NBA, MLB, sports was a $500 billion market. And that's a lot of money, guys, okay? So millions of dollars is a lot of money to them for someone to really, like Russia, compromise the integrity of the sport. And so if you read on this legislation, pretty much they realized that there was a lot of state-sponsored doping from Russia, and it was pretty much saturating all sports, especially combat sports in America. And the FBI was tipped off on it and did not like it. So lawyers went in to, figure what we can do, not only to combat that, definitely eradicate it, but how can we support whistleblowers who come forward, because they had no protection at the time. And the Russians are scary, all right? It's like the mafia, man. But the Russians, man, this was a transnational, okay? This went over state lines. We're talking, crossing time zones and seas. And so as we refer back to today, present day, where sports betting and gaming is now a big thing, okay? It sort of allowed this field office at the FBI to investigate cases like this, okay? With situations like this of the UFC, the NBA, or MLB, right? Pete Rose, incredible baseball player who was betting on himself, and the FBI went to probe him. They couldn't find any evidence, and this guy was an incredible baseball player. MLB, though, was not happy about what he did, so they kicked his ass out. Eventually, he got into the Hall of Fame because, hey, 3 World Series, 2 Golden Gloves. I mean, he was a great hitter. It is what it is, right? So he had the accolades. They loved the guy. He would always bet on his own games, but they couldn't substantiate anything. Why? Because sports betting is not illegal. But I'll tell you where, okay? What would constitute it illegal, right? Like how they can How there is a law, there's two, there's statutes where you can be charged under to make it federal. Okay, but before I lose my train of thought there, and we're jumping things, yes, you know, the FBI provided the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act and acting on that, which was pretty cool. They realized, well, insider betting in sports is not a federal crime until it involves money laundering, tax evasion, and organized crime. And when it does, there's still no federal law that exists specifically criminalizing game fixing, all right, rigging games, right? Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. You can get caught up on a statute, right, for conspiracy, right? You get caught on that. And what is conspiracy? That's when you're planning or have participators in the scheme to defraud, right? In gaming, right? Match fixing, and so on and so forth. There's also wire fraud and transmitting. You could be charged with under federal law, right? And so that's like using emails or phone calls, text, or internet to get the result of what the fraud is going to be, and fixing two fighters, a football game, rigging the soccer field, or so on and so forth, right? So that is really as far as it goes, and that's really how you get charged in the scheme of things when it comes to insider betting, right? So but the focus really is the money laundering, tax evasion, and organized crime. Now, if you ask why it is that insider betting, unlike money markets, equity markets like the stock market, don't get regulated so heavily, well, I guess it's because of the participatory aspect to it. Really, everybody could be involved, and it's quite scary. This looks like Hunter Campbell. It's no coincidence, Hunter Campbell was the one talking to Isaac Delgarian, very inquisitive about whether he was fixing the fight or not, right? Because there was action on the lines, and of course the Hard Rock Casino was reporting it to the FBI, who then hit up the Integrity Commission. Integrity Commission hit up leadership at the UFC to inform them that the lines are going crazy, something is off, right? There's over a 10, 12, 15 million dollar handle, meaning a volume of money coming in on this fight, and that's abnormal. I'm not surprised if Pete Rose is involved, if you have MLB franchise owners who've been involved in scandals. Who knows if Hunter or anyone belonging to the UFC Rushmore is involved somehow as well, right? We're not going to know these things, but I think for those reasons and a plethora of more, the federal law keeps gaming, at a distance, but not so much where now we talk about how the FBI and the district attorney of Las Vegas is now able to be involved. All right, so the FBI set up a sports anti-gaming initiative unit, and it's headed by Joseph Gillespie, and it was previously known as a sports bribery unit. And that sports bribery unit is really what gave way to investigating, match fixing and things of that nature in tennis and in any sport really. And had it not been, for all this, then the FBI would still, after all these years, not have some involvement to it. And we get a good example of how back in the day the sports bribery unit had an effect, right? Tim Donaghy, I think his name is. He was a referee for the NBA 13 years, and he did 15 months in jail for insider betting. So pretty much he was transferring wagering info, and he got caught up in how I told you, those charges. First he was caught up with wire fraud, right? So that's what he was charged with. and that is when you're transmitting information between text, emails, phone calls, and as this relates to, tipping insider information about a player's injury or an over under on a particular uh, prop for how many shots would be made on a single game, or the home or away team winning the game, so on and so forth. So he was charged with that to get 15 months, and also conspiracy for planning the whole fraud or scheme, right? Defrauding the NBA teams, and so on and so forth. This is how these fields offices, once the investigations come to a close, this is how they pretty much result. They result in these federal charges, and this is how it all comes about. But very different from equity markets and how those things come about. And hopefully this makes sense to you guys. I think that the main idea here is that insider betting is not necessarily illegal per se, but how you utilize the insider information, I think, has an effect. Now, of course, the UFC, like the MLB, they have policies, rules and policies that regulate the authenticity, how genuine these games will be, right? The FBI eventually had a problem, again, as mentioned, with anti-doping because the Russians were infiltrating sports in America. And, the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act was helping that, eradicate all that. But also channeling, the opportunity for what we have today established now, headed by Joseph Gillespie with the Sports and Gaming Initiative Unit for the FBI, who will be behind this here with the UFC and the District Attorney Office in Las Vegas. So hopefully this all makes sense to you. I'm going to show you this here. This is Joseph Gillespie. This is his LinkedIn. Post. He says, when we set out to create the FBI's crime and corruption in sports and gaming program in 2018, it was specifically designed to address threats like these, where organized crime and other illicit actors prey on individuals and distort our sporting institutions. This was a result of years of hard work by the agent staff mentioned by the FBI director and other agencies. Obviously, this is from the NBA betting scandal, right? So, again, because there's not enforceable laws really like there is for equity markets that, and really, I mean, how complicit is it, the nature of it? We're talking about referees right now as an example in the UFC, between Herzog and Herb Dean and others, man. You have actors and managers who may have been complicit in fixing, right? Ali Abdelaziz. We have, who knows what, Joe Rogan has made it known several times. Several times that he used to bet on fights. He made this public on the Joe Rogan podcast. So, again, I think for these reasons, because of how many actors are complicit in it, that you really can't come up with legislation to really umbrella game fixing. And so I think that the best thing we're going to have are the statutes and conspiracy and wire fraud, really ideally to try and eradicate or criminalize the freaking money laundering, tax evasion, or organized crime that could come about all this, like you saw with the NBA. But really, for what we saw with Isaac Delgarian, not necessarily. All right. Now you're seeing through X and YouTube and maybe Instagram Reels all the potential fixes that could have been, right? After this mention from Harry Mack about 100 fights, being flagged. Well, there are questionable ones, right? People are bringing up Grant Dawson and Bobby Green. I mean, they're bringing up Onama now and Steve Garcia. And so, I really think that the best we can do is really do what they've always done. Leave it up to the league, man. Leave it up to the league. If anyone's gonna do some time because they're a licensed athlete, then you'll do a few months or so because you're just too complicit in defrauding the public on, again, wiretapped, or wire fraud, or a conspiracy to defraud. I mean, $16 million really on the Isaac Dogarian handle just goes to tell me that it's really the bigwigs that were behind it. If Isaac was complicit somehow, I highly doubt he's complicit to a handle of that degree. I think that he may have been ordered by someone, with quite the leverage in the company, maybe outside the company, a competitor or something to that effect. But to say that he had leverage like that, I highly doubt it. Anyway, hopefully this helped you rationalize this whole thing more interestingly. I gave you a lot of data points so that you could reference through the night, through the day, whenever or which way you will be watching this video. You heard it here first. Pro Schmo Bets.